it is all about a practical guide to what we as landlords need to be doing due to the Renters' Rights Act. And some of it is what we need to be doing sort of really kind of nowish, and some of it is sort of practical day-to-day things that we need to be aware of going forwards. Before I get into that though, just a quick intro to me. I am Simon, and I have been a landlord for over 20 years. You can see my first and last sort of property purchase on the screen there. And I've also been making property software for, well, over 10 years, and that has taken the form of PATMA. It's obviously a property system to help people manage their rental properties. It is also HMRC approved for making text digital, and that's been a sort of my main activity for quite a few years now. And of course, as part of both of these, I am affected by the Renters' Rights Act because I am a landlord, and obviously PATMA needs to help support well, me for starters, but also all of our customers in the processes and the changes that are required by the Renters' Rights Act. So a quick overview of the sort of action that the Renters' Rights Act is forcing upon us all, and specifically the things I'm going to be talking about a bit more today. There is, of course, the government issued information sheet. So I'll talk a bit about what that is and what we need to do about it. There are going to be new contracts required going forwards for tenancies, for new tenancies, I should clarify, that is. Existing ones you don't need to recontract or anything, but new ones you do. The process of changing, generally increasing rent is different, and we'll talk about that. And also sort of the sequencing of things you need to be aware of, and a little bit about what you can and can't do as well around creating new tenancies is different. So I'll talk through those changes and what you need to do going forwards there. You may notice that this list is very focused on sort of things you need to do on a day-to-day basis and regularly, and hence is missing the changes to evictions and ending of tenancies. And I think that's a much bigger topic, and something I'm not planning to include or really talk about any more than this mention in the webinar today. Instead, today is all about stuff that you need to actually do on a regular, ongoing basis with rentals, properties and tenancies. First up then, the government issued information sheet. So what is it? Well, it's a 4-page PDF document that you can download from the government website. I will actually just paste a link into the chat for you for this as well. I don't know if that's going to come through on the recording or not, but if not, we'll make sure that we have that available wherever the recording is shared. And that link is to the official government site where you can download that PDF document, which of course is how you can get it. Certainly if you are wanting to do any of the things we talk about manually, that is the place. And indeed, you very much must get it from there, because you have to make sure that you're using it unaltered and without any changes. As for what you do with it, well, that is very much the subject of the next slide. You must send it to every tenant. You need to send it to every named tenant on every tenancy that you have on the 1st of May. You cannot rely on just sending it to a lead tenant. It must go to every tenant. And I believe the specific sort of cutoff is the tenants you have on the 1st of May. So effectively the tenants that are going to be using an old style tenancy. If you've got any tenants that are sort of in that grey area that are just starting a tenancy at the beginning of May, it can't hurt to send it to them as well, just in case. But specifically, it must be every tenant included. You must send the original PDF. I mentioned this already on the previous slide, but you are not allowed to add anything to it or alter anything with it. It has to be the specific document that has been provided by the government. Now, you can send it by post. So obviously in that form, it won't be the PDF, it will be a printed version of the document, but you can send it by post. You can also send it by email. In fact, they say you can send it by text message as well, but seeing as you cannot send a link to the document, you have to send the document itself. I'm not entirely sure how compatible that is with text messages, but I think the method that most people will be using will either be printed out, post or physical delivery, and email as another option. You must deliver this, or send this, I should say, to all of these tenants before the 31st of May. Originally, it was said that the plan was going to be you could send it during May, so from the 1st of May to the 31st of May. But when the government released the information sheet, they actually said you can send this now. You don't have to wait until the beginning of May, but you still must have sent it to all tenants before the end of May. You may well have a letting agent who looks after your properties or some of your properties, and it is entirely valid for your letting agent to send this document to all of your tenants. However, if they make a mistake or they don't send it, or there is another sort of element missed along the chain, you will still be the one ending up responsible for that. And getting this wrong could result in a fine of up to £7,000. In fact, I think the fine starts at £4,000. So you really don't want to get this wrong. I don't think it can hurt for your tenants to potentially receive a couple of copies of this document. And certainly it's better that they might receive a couple rather than none at all, and you end up with a fine. So even if you've got an agent handling your properties and potentially saying they are going to send this document to all of your tenants for you, I suggest you probably want to consider sending it yourself anyway, as well, just to be absolutely certain that it really does make it out there. Speaking of making sure, you don't actually have to record any evidence you've sent things. Your requirement is to send it, not to be able to prove that you've sent it. However, failing to send it could result in a fine. And of course, how do you prove that you did send it when someone claims you didn't? You need some evidence that you've sent it. If you are taking the postal route, I should say, then you can get a proof of postage that you've actually sent the document. You can go to a post office when you're sending your letters, and you can make sure that it has, or excuse me, you can fill in a form and get that sort of approved, so you've got that evidence that you've sent it. You could also deliver things by hand, so you don't have to send them by post. So you could take a photo of handing the document to each of your tenants, or perhaps a photo of putting it through the door for your tenants. So depending on what level of convincingness you want of the evidence, and also how easy it is to actually get hold of your tenants and things like that, and to some extent how many you've got to do this with as well. If you don't take the physical printed postal sort of delivery form of providing this information, then you can instead send it by email. And if you're sending things by email, you can use an email service that records that an email has been sent. That, of course, is a good start, but email is not 100% reliable. It's not a perfect delivery method. Sometimes things end up in spam boxes or blocked by other systems or what have you. So you could use an email service that requests a read receipt from the receiver, or perhaps uses other methods to try and track that an email has been opened. Unfortunately, again, they are not 100%. Sometimes they provide false positives, and sometimes they don't get recorded at all. So it's not perfect. So perhaps you want to actually request from your tenants that they provide you some kind of confirmation that they have received this document. It could be that you get them to click on a button. It could be that you get them to send you a message, perhaps a reply to the email. It could be that you even request an e-signature of some sort and use some kind of e-signature service. That perhaps probably is overkill, but it is absolutely certain that they have then received it. Of course, your tenants may not want to do this. They may not get round to doing it. They may not be bothered to do it. Even if they do agree to do it, they may do it after the 31st of May and cause problems there. So you do need to be a little bit careful and choose what evidence you think you can actually manage to collect. Of course, whatever you do collect, make sure you keep a good copy of it. Make sure you keep it safe. Make sure you put it somewhere where you will remember where it is with all of the rest of your property records and your tenancy information, because you probably won't need it, but you might, and you need to have it on hand and know where to be able to find it, and obviously not accidentally lose it over the months or years, however long it takes before you may need it. If you are using PATMA, then PATMA will be providing tools to help with this process. We won't be providing any tools to help with the postal version of the approach for this, but we will for the electronic version. We will specifically be sort of tagging all tenants that you have at the beginning of May and providing reminders through the system that you do need to deliver the information sheet. You will be able to manually mark you've handled this outside of PATMA, of course, if that's the approach you want to take. But if you want to use PATMA to help you with the process, then we will have a tool that enables you to email the document straight out to all of your tenants. We will primarily be requesting that they click a button to confirm that they have received the document, and we will obviously log the fact that we've sent the email to them. We will log the fact that they've clicked the button and timestamp those things as well. So you've got that record within your account, within your communications log with your tenant, built with each of your tenants. We will also employ some general email tracking tools sort of as a backup. So in case your tenants don't click the button or refuse to click the button even, we will still have recorded that we've sent the email, and we will try to record that they have opened email as well as a bit of a backup to that process. As I said before, those mechanisms are not 100%, but it could be a useful fallback to show that you have at least tried to get this information through to all of your tenants. We will also have an optional e-signature request. Again, it's another step, it's another process to ask of your tenants, and hence there may well be a bit more resistance, and they may choose not to do that. So you may not want to turn it on for everyone, or perhaps not for anyone. As I said before, it's perhaps overkill, but we will have that option available if that is the route that you want to go down. Whichever option you do take, we will of course be recording all of these things. So we will record that we've sent the email. We will record that the recipient has opened email if that's available. We will record that they have clicked on the button to confirm that they've received it. If it's an e-signing request, then we will of course record the signed complete document with the evidence that they have completed it to say they've received the document. Those records, that evidence, will be stored directly in your PATMA account against your tenant and your tenancy, so you can easily find those records if you ever need to. And if this doesn't happen, or doesn't happen in a timely manner, we will remind you through the standard PATMA alerting and reminding system that you have tenants outstanding that have not completed this process yet, and you can then chase them, optionally sending reminders through PATMA as well, to try and convince them to actually complete the confirmation step, not just the relying on the sort of backup evidence. This process isn't available in PATMA yet. We are still working on the finishing touches to that. It will be ready before the beginning of May. So you will have plenty of time to actually get the process all completed during May. Next up, contracting for tenancies, and the AST, the Assured Short Hold Tenancy that we have all been using for many years now, is dead from the 1st of May. It is no more. You must not issue or sign an Assured Short Hold Tenancy Agreement from the 1st of May. Instead, you must use an Assured Periodic Tenancy Agreement. What's the difference between these? Well, for starters, there's no fixed period at the start of an Assured Periodic Tenancy. So it's a rolling tenancy right from the beginning. There's also no concept of renewing an APT. So in the same concept that there's no fixed period, there's also no renewal. It's rolling right from the start, and it just continues forever until, well, probably the tenant chooses to end it, or you choose one of the options in Section 8 to end it. There's also a new sort of set of specific written terms that you must provide as part of setting up an APT, and I'll talk a bit more about that in the later section. But apart from that, they aren't really that different. It's still setting up a tenancy. It's still got a lot of the same kinds of terms and conditions. Obviously, there are some differences in there around sort of ending a tenancy particularly, but the principles are basically the same. It sets up an agreement for a tenant to pay you rent and for you to provide housing. Again, if you are using PATMA, then APTs, Assured Periodic Tenancies, will be available from the 1st of May. So all of the tenancy agreements, tenancy templates that are available within PATMA will be updated, along with sort of updated options for setting those up and configuring them so that all the correct information is available. Obviously, still avoiding any requirement to duplicate information as you're setting that up. But other than that, there probably isn't much you need to be aware of. There is, again, sort of this sort of slight grey area where you might be starting to arrange a tenancy before the beginning of May, but it's not actually going to be signed until after the 1st of May, or you're not even quite sure when it's going to be signed because it's starting right around that time. So I'm not providing legal advice on this webinar, and I can't categorically say exactly how those grey areas should be handled. But the general principle is, before the 1st of May, you should be using an AST. 1st of May onwards, you should be using an APT. So to help with that, we may well add the APT templates as an option in a few days sort of prior to the 1st of May, just in case you need to help sort of manage that process. But from the 1st of May, the AST templates will be gone. They won't be available anymore, and the APT templates will be available and ready for use there. Next change then is around rent reviews and, of course, generally increasing of rent. From the 1st of May, there will only be one way you can do this. Previously, you had a number of different options, and indeed the contract you chose to use as your AST could change the approach you were taking or you needed to take. But from 1st of May, all existing tenancies will be forced into this one new standard approach. And of course, all new APT tenancies must use this approach as well. That approach is by issuing a Section 13 notice. So this is a specific official form. It's using a new form for Section 13 though. So previously, I think it was Form 4, and the new one's going to be Form 4A. Last time I looked, I don't think that had actually been published yet, although I could have missed that. I haven't looked for a couple of weeks. But that new form is the one that you will have to use to change rent for a tenancy. Also, the rent that you change it to must be in line with the market rent. And if it's not, then it is going to be a bit easier for tenants to challenge the rent increase that you're suggesting, if that's what they wish to do. Because of that, it is becoming increasingly important to, again, collect some evidence that the process you're following for setting your rent is consistent, and also that it is in line with the wider market, and you're not massively increasing rent or anything like that. So you if you're doing this sort of the manual way, probably the simplest option is to have a look on Rightmove or your chosen portal of preference for other rental properties in the area that are of a similar type and size to your property, and pick out the appropriate comparables, make a list of them, perhaps take some screenshots, so you've got an idea of evidence there for the properties and the rents that have been charged recently on those properties in the local area. And you can use that as evidence. Again, you obviously have to keep it, make sure you store it somewhere safe, make sure you store it somewhere where you can find it again in the future, and that can be the evidence you use to back up the rental increase or the rental change that you're asking for using the official Section 13 Form 4A. Currently in PATMA, the rental review process or the rent increase process is pretty basic. And this is partly because lots of different people want to use different approaches to actually undertaking this and issue different paperwork and things. So we've taken a very sort of basic approach to allow you to choose how you want to communicate with your tenants to arrange it. And PATMA is more about just sort of walking through the basic processes and recording the fact that you have agreed a change with your tenants. Going forwards, we are going to be implementing a full sort of new style process where we can actually issue the new form for Section 13. So we can generate that paperwork for you and make sure it gets sent off to the tenants. And also we will have a system within PATMA where you can review comparables in the area, not just currently available ones, but also recently available ones. And you can pick out sort of 2 or 3 that are sort of the best matches against your property. And we will record for you a snapshot of those rental listings. So there's some evidence stored for you to back up the rental change that you're putting through. This process will be coming soon. It probably won't be ready right at the beginning of May. So you may have to wait a little while before using this to actually make any rental changes, but it will be coming very soon. Of course, we do need to wait for the new form to be available, which, as I said last time I looked, wasn't yet. If it is, then we will get implementing on that quite soon. But it should be ready during May. So the last topic for today, the last sort of day-to-day change that's happening from the Renters' Rights Act is around setting up new tenancies. And there's quite a lot that's changed in this process. It is mostly sort of subtle changes that you need to be aware of. So generally speaking, when you put out an advert in the past and currently for a property being available for rent, you will probably include the rent you're asking for. Well, from the 1st of May, you must include the rent on your advert. Probably not really a change because you're probably doing it anyway, but it is a new requirement, if you like. However, something that is perhaps a bit more of a change is that once you have advertised your asking rent, you are not allowed to take any offers over that asking rent. So it is more important than ever to make sure that you have investigated the market, that you are aware of what the going rent is for your property, and to make sure that you ask for the correct level of rent in your advert when you're marketing your rental property. Because if you market it too low, you will be stuck too low. You cannot take offers over the asking rent. You also have some extra rules around sort of the sequencing of the setup of the tenancy. So You must not request or take any rent before the contracts are actually signed by everyone involved. You can take a holding deposit, which is a maximum of 1 week's rent, and you can still put that towards the first rental payment, but it can only be a holding deposit. It cannot be deemed as rent until everything else is sort of completed. And you are also restricted on taking the larger security deposit as well. So you need to sort of get the sequencing right. So generally speaking, you would advertise your property, you would undergo viewings, you would choose the tenant or tenants that you want to move forwards with. You would then ask for the holding deposit. You can then undertake your referencing and your right to rent checks and the normal things you need to do there. Oh, I should also say that before you start the referencing, you should provide your prospective tenants with your privacy policy. Of course, you will be collecting their data at this point and passing it on to third parties as well to undergo that process. And once they have completed that referencing process and you're happy to move forwards with people, at that point, you will probably issue them with your draft tenancy. And it is important that that draft tenancy, that assured periodic tenancy, includes a written statement of terms. There's a specific set of terms and conditions that must be included before you agree a tenancy. You can actually provide them separately from the actual tenancy agreement, but I think the general practice is for most tenancy agreement templates to include them as part of the assured periodic tenancy. But they must be provided to and available to your prospective tenants before they sign the tenancy agreement. And then once they have signed the tenancy agreement, and perhaps you have signed the tenancy agreement as well, at this point, you can start looking at the security deposit, which can be up to 5 weeks of rent. Of course, once you've received that, the clock starts ticking on the 30 days you have in order to put that into an official deposit scheme and to issue the prescribed information for that back to your tenants. Also, once everybody has signed that tenancy agreement, only at that point can you ask for some rent. And specifically, you can only ask for a maximum of 1 month's rent. If you want to adjust the sort of tenancy rent day going forwards, then you can ask for less than 1 month as that first payment, but you cannot adjust it the other way. You cannot ask for more than 1 month's rent. It is very much restricted to just that first month. So you cannot insist that anyone pays a 6-month upfront rent or anything like that. You cannot insist that anyone pays the first month and the last month or anything like that. You can only request that 1 month or maximum of 1 month of rent. Of course, in this period between signing the documents and receiving some rent, so you're ready to actually sort of hand over the keys and start the tenancy, you've still got some other bits and pieces you must remember to do, particularly around the compliance requirements you have. So in here, you need to issue all of your compliance documents, gas safety certificate, the ICR, EPC, perhaps copies of your HMO licenses and other paperwork around that if you have those requirements as well. You probably also want to take some actions to protect yourself as well by providing some extra things here, probably an inventory to get your tenants to agree to the current state of the property. And you definitely want to collect some evidence that the smoke alarms and the carbon monoxide alarms are working, probably on the day of handover of the start of the tenancy if you possibly can. Again, you don't have to collect the evidence. The requirement is just that they do work. But of course, if you ever need to prove it later on, how do you do that without some evidence? So it's always good to actually sort of record testing these things on the day, so you've got the evidence you need in order to make sure that you're protected. Hopefully at this point, your tenancy is all set up. You've completed everything in the right order. You've handed over the keys to your tenants and they've moved in. and you can now continue that tenancy on that periodic 1 month at a time basis. Again, if you are using PATMA to set up your tenancies, we will be updating a new tenancy checklist. So currently this is a sort of step-by-step process to make sure all the compliance is in place and everything is working. And it will be updated with this new sequence, this new sort of set of events. The new templates and things will be included in there for the contracting elements. There is no longer a need to send out the how to rent guide. That has actually gone away. A lot of the sort of new written terms, I think, are considered to cover some of that instead. So that's actually going to go away from the process. A slight simplification. Of course, the process within PATMA still avoids duplicating any data. So once you've entered your tenant names once, they will be used on all of the different documentation that gets generated. You will never need to enter their name again. And as the process proceeds, we will collect evidence at every step of the way. So where you need to record that a document has been signed, PATMA will send that out for e-signatures. And when it's completed and signed by everyone, we will automatically collect that and store that with the tenancy. The same with evidence that you have sent out, your compliance documentation, your inventory, and whatever else it is that is needed along that path. So it should still be just as streamlined and just as efficient as before, but you do just need to be a little bit aware of some of the changes. And of course, particularly aware of some of the changes around the advertising and the rent you are permitted to accept. There we go.